All right, so we're going to introduce our guest speaker today. It's actually one of us in the community that has done quite a lot for other people, helped a lot of people to kickstart their career in the IT field, and is a CEO of our partner training institutions, the Touch House Tech uh, uh, technology school that train people in different branches. And one of the things that we are partnering with this upcoming session is the Oracle database administration. So he's here today to also greet this community and share with us what he has learned so far in the IT field. And this is no other person than George Allen Dikonge. Yes, George, are you there?
Yes, flesh and bone.
All right. Okay. Perfect. So,
All right.
Joyce, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
Shall We
you.
Take. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Dennis. First of all, I would like to extend my congratulatory wishes to Elizabeth as well, and welcome her to the world of gigs, and just encourage her in her journey. It's gonna be rough and sweet, bittersweet. So be ready for anything. And also, yeah, I also want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to the webinar. And before I start on what I have to say, I would just like to talk a little bit about Touch Tech, Touch House Technology, So just like Kiawe IT, we also train people in, IT databases, most especially. Our specialty is in Oracle, and we also touch AWS Cloud, Azure. Since we are partnering with IT Tech, I'm not going to teach you Microsoft SQL Server, but I will give you what you need from the Oracle side, because everything is interwoven. Right now, to be a good DBA, you have to be, should we say in French, they say polyvalent, right? So you have to, put on multiple hats. And that's the way we're going to train you so that whenever you get into any environment, you're capable to pick up on anything. If they throw MySQL, Postgres, whatever, you'll be able to pick it up. And mind you, if you learn Oracle, every other database is going to be, easy for you to pick up. I know there are people around here who have ventured around Oracle, and you know how it is. And that being said, we're going to provide very, very down to earth and very easy to apprehend uh, method of teaching. First of all, the environments are going to be provided for you. So you have your server, you can go in there 24/7, do what you want to do. You have access to all the tools possible. And, uh, you're going to have access to other facilities that we offer. I cannot talk about everything right now because, we're on time. And so for now, I would jump into what I had to present today, and maybe we'll talk more towards the end of this webinar.
Thank you, George. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and all righty. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be talking today, about data, right, and information, but from another angle, because most of us here are DBAs, IT professionals. We talk about data every day, but people use data and information in two different contexts, or maybe many different contexts, right? So first of all, we have to understand what is data, right? from the conception, data is just, you know, it could be anything. Every human being is walking data because like if you go to the hospital and they take your blood sample, chest x-ray, something, right? Whatever they get from there is data. Data can come in any form, right? In its raw form, it's anything. Now, once you have data, sometimes we hear people say, you know, data is the new oil, is the gold. Yeah, it could be. Now, if you take crude oil from the ground, what do you make of it? If you have no knowledge of what to make out of that thing, it's useless to you. And that is where you now have to transform data into something that gives you meaning, right? So that is where information comes in, because once you transform data into information, which is structured and, you know, understandable, people can now use that to do something meaningful, right? And right here we have the stages of data processing. So you have the input stage, which is anything, you know, from your phones. Every day you browse, it's being inputted in some warehouse somewhere, you know, and that's why sometimes when you browsing on your phone, computer, you get suggestions on commercials and things like that. You wonder like, what's going on, right? That's data they've gotten from the warehouse, you know, raw data. They've processed it to information, which they now use, you know, for whatever purpose, right? So, and information is just simply, like I mentioned, you know, organized data for a specific purpose. Because sometimes we think we always use the word data for information, right? And some people like say, oh yeah, I have this data I want to use. Yeah, I mean, data could come in any way, ones and zeros, binaries from, you know, DBA standpoint. If you have a backup, that's data. What can you do with it? Nothing. If you do not, you know, restore that thing and the database engine comes in, you know, process it, depending on what query, the application upfront picks it, transforms it to what maybe the web face is going to use to present that to either maybe you and I, in the case of Amazon, Google, you know. So now that is information. Once you have information, I hear people say information is power. True, it is. But if you have information and you don't know how to use it, it's still useless. Because too many people have information, but how can they use it? They don't know what to do with it. Like if I come to you and I'm talking to you, I'm saying like, do you know what a blockchain is? Right? And I explain what blockchain is. Somebody is going to be like, well, I mean, it's just, you know, this new crazy technology of, you know, decentralized system of storing data where you have a consensus where, you know, nodes need to agree for data to be passed across to, you know, the next person and can never be deleted. Fine. Some other person is going to tell you, oh, I've heard that thing. It's used by Bitcoin, right? That technology runs the crypto. That person has knowledge because he's made use of information because he knows something which you don't know. And that takes us into now the next step, which is going to be information technology. Because once you have data, information, there has to be something that has to process this thing, you know, has to process it. There has to be a methodology of processing it, of sending it across the ends of the earth, right? And that's where you come up with computers, with processing power, hardware in it, communication through network, softwares that run all these things, servers. That's IT, information technology. It's broad. So like we DBAs, you know, we are the back end guys. So we are like the last person you see before the safe if we're in the back, because everything data is inside the safe, right? And you have infrastructure guys who come in and build the bank. You know, when they build the bank, infrastructure guy is going to say, okay, I'm going to build this environment. I'm going to make it, you know, if it's in the cloud, I'll build it in the cloud. And I'll provision X amount of computing power, you know, give it this memory, lock it up in this VPC in the case of AWS, or VPN in the case of Azure, you know, which is just a private network, virtual network, right? And they will say, okay, we would have to protect this network. So they'll have to use, you know, security measures like implementing firewalls and subnets and ACLs, you know, Active Directories and all that good stuff, right? That gives us what we know as IT, because sometimes we also use the word IT. Oh, like I've had this situation where I'm at a bar and I meet this, you know, white chicks. I'm like, they can know nothing about anything. They ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm into IT. And one of the girls is like, you say, what? IT? Well, little did I know that she is a pro. And she's like, so when you say IT, like, what do you mean? I'm like, database admin. She's like, okay, now you're being precise. Because I was about asking you what is a CMOS. And I'll be like, you know, so you need to watch what you say out there, you know. So we often use the word IT, right? It's broad, it's huge, it's a combination of many things. It's just a way of processing that data, securing it, making sure it's being transported from one end to another over a network, you know. You know, every network is a client-server relationship, no matter what it is. Your phone is a client. The minute you send something across a request, let's say Google, the server on the other side is the server. I would say the server is the server. I mean, that's the same thing, but that's what it is, right? So if, let's say I send a text to Dr. Kiawe, I am being the client. If he replies my text, he's being the server. That's just very basic what IT is all about. You know, that movement of data front and back, and the processing of that data and presenting it to, you know, whoever is in the position to make whatever use of it. Now, once we get through that point, this is still like the whole information technology thing, you know, what applications, integration, deployment, migration, all that falls under IT. It's broad. Now, people who have knowledge are the ones who actually take information and make something out of it. For example, we have, let's say, software developers and CTOs, right? When the, let's say the business analysts, right, the BAs, they pull up data from a database, a structured database or a relational database or a warehouse, what have you, right? They come up with all these stats, you know, graphs, charts, and all that stuff, right? And they come to the CTO. Let's just give an example, Amazon, for example. And Amazon, the CTO is like, they go through this data information. They're like, oh, we've seen that ladies normally buy, you know, red bottom shoes at this time of the year from this seller, right? They're like, okay, that's good information, you know, and they go through with it like, oh, yeah, them ladies from this age buy mostly this brand at this time because maybe it's spring break, time for party, college kids, go out there, get those shoes and go party. The CTO is going to be like, okay, that's some good information. So how do we use this information right now? You start having the brain boxes coming up. Oh, we can write an application, you know, from our side, which is going to direct, you know, people across the internet who are looking for this particular brand, right, to this shop, you know. maybe it's their shop, right? Now that's where you start having cookies on your web browser. You can be browsing, you don't know. Cookies are just information, metadata they pick out of your um, internet activity, right? And they send this feedback. They use this feedback to send you tips on commercials. You know, sometimes you just wonder why maybe you want to Google something and Google just feels that thing for you, or maybe you're just browsing and you want to just say, oh, I'm looking for a Mercedes AMG 63, and everywhere you want to open your web browser, there is Mercedes AMG 63 everywhere. You know, that's how people who have that knowledge, they now go to the background, they program something to use that information which came from data, right? Now, this right here just shows us, you know, how this is done, you know, from data to information to knowledge, now to the decision making, which is the CTOs, the CEOs, you know, who use that information to come up with that decision, which is going to, you know, change or maybe make things better for a company, or, you know, sales go up, right? There is another level on top of this one, which we have to strive to be there, right? If we go to this beautiful chart or pyramid, there is the top level that has to do with wisdom, which is understanding, integration, application, you know, reflected upon, actionable, all that stuff. This is somebody who has an insight. You know, they don't just look at what they see or what they know, they go beyond that. And that's where you start having visionaries. Elon Musk, you know, um, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, right? They use from data, information, knowledge to come up with groundbreaking things, technology, products, you know, disruptive things, right? They have, they don't just see that information for what it is. And they don't just have just the knowledge. For example, let's take Jeff Bezos, right? Everybody had a shop, we're selling. When the dot-com boom came around, you know, people started going online with their shops, right? And he started with books. Then he looked around and he's like, okay, data is very valuable. I have this information about data. I have the knowledge on how to make use of this information. What can I do which is going to be groundbreaking? Aha, came up with Amazon, where you can get anything, right? He used that knowledge which he got from the information he got, which came from data, to create something which you and I and everybody on this uh, forum right now cannot do without, technically, except maybe if you go to Africa, then I mean, you just have to rush to the store and buy something. But here in the United States, or in the Western world, it's hard to do without Amazon. Same goes with Steve Jobs, right? Yeah, before we had phones, you know, fixed phones, which had to go through lines, then came the cell phones, you know, data was around that. Yeah, we can communicate over a long distance using a phone, you know, I make a call from this end, dial some numbers, the digits are sent up to the satellite, it goes through a sent data center where it's processed and to the other side. Yeah, back then we had Nokia 3310, you know, it did just the basic things. Make a call, receive a call. Text you can send maybe, because back then there were no elaborate keyboards on your phone, because two had ABC, three had D, E, and all that stuff. Steve Jobs was like, okay, what can I do with this knowledge I have from the information I have based on the data, right? What did he come up with? A touchscreen phone that had a keyboard on it. game changer. Today, we cannot do without touchscreen phones. Impossible. If they give you a phone like a Nokia 3310, it's going to be hard to deal with that stuff. First of all, no WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, nothing, right? So looking at data, not just from our, career or technical standpoint, my whole point here is we should try to look at data from a different angle, try to make something out of it because we can be innovators as well, right? The problem is, yes, we have data, we have information, we have knowledge. Do we have that insight? You know, that is the game changer. Normally, or actually, I don't think any person here wants to be a 9 to 5 person for the rest of their lives, right? Someday you would want to make a change, but how can you make a change when you don't even understand what you have in front of you? You know, information is very important. Knowledge is more important. That wisdom, that vision, that insight is paramount, right? And I'm glad, the next part of this program is going to be, teaching people how to maybe get credit score boost up, in the next 6 months to 800 and stuff. That is knowledge, right? That is knowledge which we're going to get. The next thing, somebody is going to use that knowledge and come up with something, you know, just try to see how we can get beyond just looking at data from our career standpoint. Yeah, we know as a DBA, what is data? It's there in the database, right? For a relational database, is going to be structured into tables. Those tables have, a relationship, right? And the table have to be uh, consistent at all times, or the database has to be consistent at all times. It has to be backed up. There has to be, redundancy, so there is no single point of failure and all that stuff, right? Yeah. From that standpoint, we are down at the bottom, the gatekeepers of data. If we want to stay right there, that's fine. You go on top, you have people like BAs, they come in, they get this data, they make, run some complex algorithms on them and give you information which other people use. It becomes knowledge to them. They make good use of it and others just take it and run, you know? So that being said, I would also like to touch up a little bit on what was said in the beginning about this field, right? For those who are not there yet, you're very welcome. Interesting, fascinating, challenging, but satisfying. You know, if anybody stands out there and tells you, oh, no, I don't like, those DBAs, or these IT things, as they always say, it's not for me. Hey, the human brain is capable of learning anything. Nobody can tell you that you cannot learn at any time. It's impossible. Your brain actually, scientists say that we haven't used up to 10% of our brain, if I'm not mistaken. So what's the other 90% doing? Just chilling? You can use it. It's just like a machine. If you don't use your memory up to a certain point, it's still going to be able to run more. But if you don't use it, it's going to run just what you run every day, you know? So coming in, do not limit yourself, push yourself. I, for one, I'm going to be very honest with you. For those who are going to be joining Torch House, there is this African proverb that says you spank the kid with one hand and you hold them with the other hand, right? That's how we do it. We give you raw, but at the same time, we hold you and make you understand that this is how it's supposed to be. So when you go out there, you're already hardened, right? It's not going to be, hey, you're going to make 6 figures. Yeah, you can make 6 figures in 3 months and you get fired. Very possible. Not even very possible. It happens all the time. But Kiawe Tech, Torch House, what we do is prepare you for battle, right? Not just to go fight, to survive. And not only survive, thrive and become a general someday, where you can also be a manager, whatever you want to be. So I would like to encourage anybody who is here who is not inside yet. You cannot stand outside of the club and you you want to dance outside. Come inside and get the real deal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. So thank you so much for the wonderful presentation.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, we're going to give room for a couple of questions for George. And let me start with myself, and then I'll go around. Josh, we've just talked about the importance of data, and it happens to be that we are a community of database administrators. So can you tell me, for someone who is not really so used to what data is all about, how is learning, starting a career in the database field actually important for their future growth in the IT field?
Okay, yeah. So first of all, there's one thing I want to let everybody know who is interested, right? The entire IT field is about data. So data is that thing that is like the oil, right? You build these oil rigs, you build these companies, you have the gas stations, you have all these things are there just for data. So what I'm saying is this: if you're coming into the IT field, yes, there is. I saw somebody posting about, asking a question about machine learning. What is the machine learning? It's learning about data. It has to use data to make that information possible. Somebody talking about system administrator. What are you building? Building for what? You're building an environment for data to reside in, right? A network admin, what are you doing? You're connecting point A to point B so data can go across, right? A cloud engineer, what are you doing? You're virtualizing things, in a huge data center so people can rent those resources to be able to move their data across, to save it, to secure it. Data and the DBA is the man. The DBA, like I said, you're the last man standing before the safe. The safe has data, you're the last guy standing. If you say no, nobody gets in.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, George. Yes, Dayo, you got a question?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. George, for this wonderful presentation. You're like reminding me, refreshing my memory on how data and information is being used in every level of management for the purpose of decision making. But the question I'm about to ask is one of the questions I already penciled down for the upcoming induction that is coming up September 4th. But I think it's going to be better for me to ask the question here now that I have a professional from both sides.
Okay.
Because my question is on Oracle and SQL.
Okay.
Now, aside from my understanding and which I know that I understand that SQL is for Microsoft, right?
Correct.
And Oracle is for Linux, right?
Yeah, Oracle. If you're talking about the operating system.
Yeah, operating system. Yeah. Then I know DB2 is for IBM. Yeah. So aside from the query syntax that's similar, I'm talking about SQL and Oracle now. What is the major difference between an Oracle and a SQL?
Okay, so technically the difference is very like it's like not too big, right? First of all, the way they process data is almost similar because they use the SQL language, right? They're going to have very little variances in the language, For example, in Oracle, if you want to query a system view, you do $, right? SQL, you're going to do the add sign, you know, things like that, right? But those are very minute things, right? Now, where we get into the nitty-gritties, right? Microsoft SQL Server started running on Linux 2019, right? Version 2019, I believe. Oracle could run or has been running on almost every other operating system, Windows, Linux, right? Now, the difference is this. First of all, at the level of the operating system, the Linux operating system is, you know, first of all, it started up open source, so you can jump in there and make your own version of it, right? And it's more secured, and that's why data centers use Linux a whole lot. Your phone, Android is Linux. In fact, Linux is all around you, right? Linux is all around you. So that is one point. Secondly, if you go to most companies, right? Yes, they're going to be running a platitude of, you know, database platforms, right? But for the most part, mission critical data would be on platforms like Oracle, because Oracle is very, very, very reliable, very, very reliable, and its processing engine is very robust, right? Now, Microsoft SQL Server, on the other hand, has come a long way, and they are coming up strong, you know? So what I will tell you is, I know your question is going towards which should I take, right?
No, I already understand what I want to take. I just want to
Okay.
know.
Okay, the
I mean,
difference.
I can't.
So the point here is this: it's going to be very important for every DBA, not just you, everybody on this forum right now, to know more than one database platform.
Yeah.
Right now, when I started as an Oracle DBA. Lo and behold, my very first job, when I got in there, I was given a laptop, and they're like, you know what? You're going to do Sybase.
You're going to do what?
Sybase.
I don't know what I.
That's another one.
Sybase is a brother to Microsoft. Microsoft broke out of Sybase to become Microsoft SQL Server.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, really? You guys didn't hire me for Oracle for Sybase? They said, but you're a DBA. You know what I mean? You see? But there's one thing. Being a DBA, if you limit yourself to one thing, it's going to make it very hard to adapt to the other ones. But I can tell you also one thing. Oracle, once you learn Oracle, every other database is going to be very easy to pick up. But if you reverse that, you know, you might find it hard because Oracle, first and foremost, Oracle is on Linux. If you're coming from the Microsoft world, you'll be like, what is a mount point? What is, how do I change this? How do I do that on Linux, right? But somebody from Oracle, we work on Microsoft every day. Your server is going to look almost the same, right? My computer is going to be there. You click, you go to C drive, E drive, F drive, you right click, you can do whatever you want to do. Linux, get used to the black screen.
How about the interfaces? How about the interface? Like for Oracle, when you want to manage your database, you use Microsoft SQL Management Studio.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of DB2 interfaces. They use virtually code for everything. How does Oracle? What does Oracle look like? Is it like a GUI graphic user interface or something?
Yes, Oracle gives you have free Microsoft. What Microsoft? Where did that come from? SQL Developer, right? It's free. It comes with Oracle. Then you have OEM, Grid Control, right? You have Toad, you have DB Artisan, In fact, every other tool out there, apart from the Microsoft Studio, can run for Oracle, because for the most part, there are some basic things that you would do using these tools, right? For example, changing user passwords, or creating a view, creating a stored procedure, trigger, function, troubleshooting slow running queries, those kind of things. All these GUIs they give you, is the difference starts coming in when you're going into proprietary technologies like replication, high availability, maximum availability, right? Then you start having their own specific tools that work with those. But basic DBA day-to-day stuff is going to be almost the same, because Toad produces Toad for Oracle, Toad for DB2, Toad for Microsoft SQL Server, Toad for Sybase, right? Toad for SAP, right? From Oracle standpoint, you can use OEM grid control, interestingly, to access Microsoft SQL Server, Sybase, DB2, monitoring actually, not to do much, just monitoring, right? And you can use SQL Developer to do migration from Oracle to Microsoft, Microsoft to Oracle, you can use OEM to do same, right? So that's where Oracle has, an upper hand technically. And I mean, if you go out there, the most popular database engine is Oracle, without a doubt. If you Google that right now, Microsoft should be coming up to number 3 by now, because MySQL is number 2 and Oracle still owns MySQL, So Oracle is solid. The only problem with Oracle is the licensing is high, bloody high. You understand? So companies would prefer to have Oracle handle their mission critical data. Then the rest, whatever they want to put, whatever they want to use, open source, Postgres, you name it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. In view of time, guys, I will take one more question and then we can proceed. Anyone else?
Yes, I would want to ask a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful presentation. So my question goes in terms of the market, when you observe the market as far as Oracle is concerned on SQL Server, what can you say about that? Because I'm actually asking this question as someone coming from the Oracle background, and my experience with Oracle and SQL. So what is your own view as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, so undeniably, Microsoft SQL Server is coming up strong, right? For a fact, just like, they all rotate. At some point in time, somebody is going to get the edge, the other person is going to come back, some other new person is going to come, right? So you'll be surprised to know that MySQL, right, is also very, very high up there. Oracle has been around for a minute, solid for a minute. So most places already have it, right? Now, what happens is, because of the licensing, right, they're turning to Microsoft. You see what I'm saying? For their maybe, other production or development databases, right? They are coming in their numbers to get Microsoft, MySQL, and all that stuff. But now, what's going to make the difference is, do not look only on, which one is rocking the charts, because at the end of the day, trust me, most job descriptions now, you're not going to be just one DBA. You see, they're going to say Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL. You should focus on learning as many as you can, because at some point in time, knowing just one database platform is going to be obsolete. You're going to be seriously obsolete. Like, same as the cloud, right?
Yeah.
As a DBA, you should have an idea of, what to do in the cloud if you go to an environment that has a cloud. So it's, at this point in time, it's not a one-fit-all situation where I'm going to tell you that, oh no, Oracle is the deal. No, I'm not going to say Microsoft is the only way to go, but it is very, very popular, right? But to be a solid DBA, you need to know at least 2, at the very least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And the good thing is DB2, Oracle, you just pick it up. If you know Oracle, every other database that runs on Linux is going to be a breeze. If you know Oracle, Microsoft, you combine those two, you're golden.
Thank you so much for that, George, and thank you so much, guys. One of our goals here in the community is not just to get you to the job market, it's also to look into the future and be able to guide you on which direction you should follow. Most of our meetings right now, we just had a meeting this week where the director literally came up and mentioned that if you stick with one relational database management system, you are going to phase out, which is very true because things are becoming interrelated. And that's why you see us partnering with companies, with training institutions that are also doing training that can bring in additional knowledge, expert knowledge in other fields to help you guys, especially those of you who are already sound, very good in SQL Server. You want to learn something new to that. And like he said, I cannot overemphasize on that. It's really important to stay in this field that you need to know another relational database management system. Cloud, yes, and another relational database management system. That was it. So every single year when you get a job and you start working, you should always have a goal. Like every year till you retire in this IT field, you should always have something like, what am I going to achieve this year? Set goals and follow through those goals. And with things like that, we will always be there to guide you, to show you which direction to follow. And we're doing this for best of our knowledge to help this community grow. Thank you so much, George. I would really appreciate. And George will also be talking on the
Doctor, I wanted to.
Yeah, just hold on. On the 4th of September, when we'll be having orientation, if you have Oracle-specific questions or guidance, please make sure you don't miss that orientation. Our goal here is not just to force things down your throat, is to make sure that you take informed decisions. And that's why we only bring the expert on board that already understands the field and know what is important and help you to make sure that you are not only going to a course, you have really informed, you are well informed before you make that decision. In view of time, Milton, please just be brief, please. I'm about to rush to the next topic. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to quickly respond to the, I didn't get his name there. I think it was Tamiyado or something like that. And I just wanted to quickly say that during our, after doing computer basics, and one of the focuses of that class is just to actually lead you through from what the computer is, and then we narrow it down to where the database is comes in, whether be it Oracle, be it Sybase, be it SQL. In that way, it helps those that are coming in that do not have maybe a non-IT background to